Hey everyone, and welcome back to Newegg TV. My name is Paul, and today we have a special guest in the studio. Once again, this is John, back from the Amd Firepro team. How's it going, John?
Good, Paul. Thanks for having me back.
Thanks for coming by, and you've brought us a lot of video cards, so we're always happy when you bring us video cards. John's here to talk about the Amd Firepro W series, designed for workstations of, well, workstation graphics cards. And John already stopped by earlier, actually in 2012, and he brought this guy by, which is the W600, which is this card kind of has a specific use, but now the W series has been fully fleshed out, or at least for the most part fleshed out. We have a bunch of mid-range as well as high-end graphics cards here to share with you guys today, and John's going to be giving us the details on that because he knows a lot of that information, don't you, John?
I try.
He tries. He does his very best, just as I do. All right, so first off, workstation graphics cards. Just to clarify for you guys out there, these are not for gaming use.
They can run games.
They can run games. They might not be ideal for, if you're looking for the best bang for your buck for gaming performance, we would probably direct you guys over to the Radeon series of graphics cards because there's a lot of those. These are actually based on the same architecture. So Southern Islands is the code name.
Correct.
And as far as the workstation graphics cards here, what kind of benefits have you guys gotten from that Southern Islands architecture?
So plenty of benefits for Southern Islands. Southern Islands architecture is based on a 28 nanometer process technology, which basically means that we can put more transistors in the same die space inside the same power envelope and have significantly more power output.
Okay. And when you guys are doing the design work for the cards as well as testing and validation, you guys, generally speaking, the FirePro cards will come out a little bit later than the Radeon series cards for desktops. Is that purely due to the validation and testing that you guys have been doing?
That's correct. So for the professional grade cards, the W series cards, and all of our FirePro series, we have an ISV team dedicated to basically optimizing the drivers and certifying the drivers ahead of time. And so typically what happens, as you mentioned, on the Southern Islands architecture, the Radeon cards came out a few months ahead of time of the W series cards. All the while the ISV team was certifying and optimizing the drivers for professional level applications.
Okay. Now, just to sort of give it a little bit of separation here, we're going to talk individually about the cards that we have here in front of us. We're going to start off with the W600. So we're going to talk to some unique points from card to card, as well as where they maybe sit within the lineup and where John would feel and AMD would feel that these are going to be getting their best use out of in the workstation atmosphere. And from there, we're also going to go and kind of talk about some of the unifying features across all the cards in the W series. We'll start off really quickly here with the W600. We do have a separate video on this card in particular, and this one kind of has a unique use case that you guys have designed it for. So we're talking digital signage, other areas where you might need to have multiple displays going on. You need those displays to obviously be smooth with the type of content that they might be playing back. And in areas where, let's say you're in a restaurant and you have a bunch of signs up there displaying the menu, that would be one type of application.
Exactly.
Where else might this card fit in?
So this card is the first W series card introduced in our portfolio here for Southern Islands technology. As you mentioned, it has 6 discrete mini DisplayPort output, which is great for a very highly dense multi-view solution. What's also unique about this card is it has a pretty high output, so it's 75 watt output.
Okay.
So, to help drive some of the more complex, signage content that's more and more out there today.
All right, and it being a 75 watt card, of course, it can actually get all that power directly from the PCI Express bus, and no additional power needed. Again, if you guys want to check out some more information on the W600, we do have a separate video just on that card, featuring John as well. Let's move up to the W5000, the next card in the series, which I will hold for you guys right here. What's new for the W5000?
So the W5000, of course, is also based on Southern Islands technology. This is based on the Pitcairn architecture, or ASIC. Okay. So the 2 white boxes you see here are actually Pitcairn, and then we'll move up to the black boxes here, which is Tahiti ASIC. The W5000, based on Pitcairn, fits inside a 75 watt power envelope. So as you mentioned, it does run straight off the motherboard, no external PCIe power required.
Okay.
It has 2 DisplayPort 1.2 outputs, dual link DVI, and will run, as a workhorse workstation graphics solution. Great performance on all of our professional level applications. And another thing to point out is the driver is unified, so the same driver that our ISV team builds and optimizes and certifies runs on all of our W series cards.
So you get those benefits from the driver work that's been done for the, say, 7, 8, 9,000 series cards. Still here available with the W5000 series. Maybe for folks who don't have quite the scratch to invest in the high-end cards, or maybe don't need quite as much performance out of that, W5000 would be a great place to start out.
Yep.
All right, so next up in the line is the W7000. And here, once again, we're sticking with a single slot design for the graphics card. You got a nice shroud going on here, which I like. It gives it a nice clean look with the FirePro graphics logo. Little blower style fan there to keep everything cooled off. And this one is going to use a little bit more power.
Yes, this does have an external 75 watt input, so a total of 150 watt power envelope for the W7000.
Okay.
As you mentioned, single slot solution, 4 DisplayPort 1.2 outputs for 4 discrete displays. Actually, for the MST hubs that are coming out now, can actually run 6 displays off of this card, as well as the W5000.
Okay, so DisplayPort has the capability to do what's known as daisy chaining. So essentially, you can actually support additional displays. So this one can natively, just out of the box, support up to 4 displays.
Correct.
For Eyefinity support, if you're going to go with multi-monitor, you can do additional. Is there a limit? Is it up to 6?
It's
with
6
that
displays per card and 4 displays per output.
Okay. 6. All right. So you could theoretically have 1 display out with the splitter pushing 4 displays.
Correct.
But the limit per card is going to be up to 6.
Correct.
Okay, and if you can add another card into your system, and you can get more displays on top
Definitely.
of that. All right, so if you guys are interested in DisplayPort connectivity, there's separate little splitter boxes you can get, and those can push additional displays. Actually, I think we have a slide showing that as well, so we'll come back to that in just a moment. So there's a W7000 series, a nice step up from the W5000 if you need additional performance. And moving right along here, we have the W8000.
Okay, so the W8000 is a step up from the W7000. It's a dual slot solution because it does have a bigger power envelope at 187 watts or thereabouts. This one also has 4 DisplayPort 1.2 outputs, as does the W7000, as well as 4 gig frame buffer.
Okay.
So the difference between the W7000 and the W8000 is basically just more output because it has a bigger power envelope.
Okay, and also a bigger frame buffer. You also have some additional plugs on the device, and I'm just really curious about these. Could you really quickly tell us, for instance, we got a little connector right there that I haven't seen before?
Right, so that is a connector for a ribbon, and basically it will connect multiple cards in the same chassis, or multiple chassis for multiple display output. It connects to our S400 card, which is basically a frame lock, gen lock capability. Okay. It locks the sync in order to make sure that there's no tearing amongst multiple displays and multiple cards.
All right, and just me being a hardware guy, I always have to ask about the different plugs. All right, we have another plug here on the back. I haven't seen one of these before.
This is for our 3D stereoscopic output, so it basically will sync an external 3D stereoscopic signal.
All right, so 3D support there. Also wanted to point out this card has a very clean looking back plate on it. Again, if you're into workstations, maybe you're not as much into how cards look, but I always think hardware should look nice as well as perform well. So I have to say I do like the design of these. Also dual 6-pin PCI Express power inputs there. Again, more power for more performance. And then last in line, but not in performance by a wide margin, we have the W9000, and this is the best of the best in the W series?
Correct. So this is our ultra high-end workstation card, the W9000. This one has 6 mini DisplayPort output. It has 6 gigabyte frame buffer, ECC enabled. W8000, by the way, also has ECC memory as well. Okay. And this would be awesome performer for both graphics and compute performance.
Okay, and again here we have a shroud style design. I should have mentioned this on the W8000 as well as the 9000. Blower style fan here. It's going to be also ejecting most of the hot air that the card will produce out the back of the case via that vent there. And then again here, pretty similar design to the W8000, but again, as you mentioned, that increased frame buffer, also increased power. And this one would be, I know these aren't directly compared, but this would be the rough equivalent to like a 7970 gigahertz edition in the Radeon line.
Right, back to what we mentioned, that they're both based on Southern Islands technology. The 7970 came out first. This one basically has the same ASIC, but of course is certified to run in workstation applications and has the optimizations built into the unified driver by our ISV team.
Okay, and for power requirements here, 1 6-pin and 1 8-pin PCI Express power connector. And Before we move on to a few slides to demonstrate some of the capabilities of these cards, because there's some stuff that's a lot easier to show than just to talk about, I did want to also point out that the W series, the W stands for Workstation. There's also an S series that
Correct.
stands for Server. So there is another series of AMD FirePro cards specifically designed for server use. And John's been telling me a little bit about that. So if you are interested in workstation or server level GPU compute capabilities, also check out the S series of graphics cards. Next up, we have a little bit of a slideshow. So John's going to take us on a walk through that and some of the technology integrated into these cards.
Great, thanks, Paul. So when it comes to our Southern Islands FirePro professional grade graphics cards, there are a number of things that we bring to the market in terms of a value proposition. So the FirePro technology, of course, always supports the latest and greatest graphic specs. So OpenGL 4.2, as well as the compute open architecture, the OpenCL development framework. We also offer multiple display technology called AMD Eyefinity, which basically provides up to 6 display output per W card. The GCN architecture is brand new for the W series cards. This is the Graphics Core Next architecture, offers 28 nanometer process technology for increased horsepower in the same power envelope, and also DirectX 11.1 support. In terms of performance and reliability, we have an ISV team dedicated for certifying and optimizing all of our graphics cards on a unified driver. The FirePro graphics cards all come with a 3-year warranty and offer 24/7 support, so that if you have any issue with with your professional level application, you can pick up a hotline and contact the FirePro team directly and get that issue resolved.
So as compared to, sorry to interrupt you, John, but for instance, compared to Radeon cards, which you might have different vendors who are actually producing those cards and selling them to the customer, with FirePro, if you're contacting FirePro, you're contacting AMD and you're getting support directly from AMD.
Correct. So the FirePro line of cards is manufactured, designed, and built by AMD.
Very nice.
So we get this question a lot when it comes to, what's the difference between professional and consumer grade graphics between FirePro and Radeon? Well, basically the two product lines are based on different market needs. When the FirePro graphics cards are basically normally used by design professionals in business critical applications. The applications generally run heavier content. They're generally OpenGL applications. There are some DirectX applications out there as well. They will require long-term reliability and stability, as well as specialized support for applications and features that are specific to those applications, such as things like transparency effects and certain OpenGL extensions that require certain optimizations. And also the data sets that are running on these applications tend to be a lot bigger than in your consumer environment, and a lot more complex as well in the business critical design environments. When we take a look at the Radeon cards, generally these are used by mainstream business and home PC users. They definitely require a very good visual representation of graphics data, but they also require a much lower cost, typically for high-end gaming, online viewing, HD video editing, and photo editing are some examples for the consumer grade cards.
All right, so different tasks that each card might be designed for, and again, this is a question that we get very frequently whenever John comes by, whenever we talk about workstation graphics card. What's the difference between workstation graphics and desktop graphics for gaming? So there's just a quick rundown of it for you guys.
And of course, here's our portfolio of W series cards that we'd already talked about. The W600 has 2 gig frame buffer, great for multi-view solutions, supporting up to 6 displays, 6 discrete displays off of that one graphics card. Also can run, up to 24 displays, for example, off of one chassis, because it provides a very highly dense multi-view solution. Considered a mid-range card. Another mid-range card added to the portfolio is a W5000. This is also a 2 gig frame buffer card, great for your mainstream workstation applications. The AMD FirePro W7000 is a 4 gig frame buffer card updated for 2012. It's considered a high-end card, as a 150 watt power envelope. And then the W8000 at around 190 watt power envelope is also a 4 gig card, 4 gig ECC enabled memory, by the way. It's considered a high-end card, and then the ultra high-end card added to the portfolio. The W9000 is a 6 gig ECC frame buffer card. Enjoys also 6 mini DisplayPort discrete outputs. And of course, all of the W cards that we're talking about today are based on the Graphics Core Next architecture. It's a 28 nanometer process technology. It supports PCI Gen 3, which if you compare the bandwidth of the previous generations, the PCI Gen 2, for example, which is 16 gigabyte round trip, PCI Gen 3 is 32 gigabyte per second round trip. And so in order to be able to support the bandwidth of the PCI Gen 3, the new architecture was introduced in order to be very scalable and to run on PCI Gen 3. A new technology introduced to the Southern Islands architecture is something called Zero Core. This is great for enterprise customers who are looking to reduce the power footprint. The graphics card basically will idle at around 3 watt when the display goes to sleep, thereby enabling a lot of power savings over previous architectures. For example, the previous architecture of 49 nanometer idled at 20 watt. So all of the W cards have built onto the ASIC a new compute architecture called Dual Asynchronous Compute Engine. The Southern Islands architecture is built with compute in mind, and what this brings to the market is new compute capability. So basically you can see here a number of GCNs or compute units, the Graphics Core Next compute units here in 2 columns there. You can kind of think of these as conveyor belts where the command processor right there at the top makes sure that all of the data coming in is filling each one of those compute units completely. So it's a very highly efficient compute architecture as opposed to the previous architecture, which wasn't as scalable and wasn't quite as efficient. So what we're seeing here is much higher compute capability from the W cards.
So with the GCN architecture, each little GCN unit there is kind of representing the building blocks that the GPU is made of?
Correct.
All right.
In terms of feature support, which I mentioned, we have our ISV team working with our software partners to support specific features that are needed at the professional level. So this is one application from PTC called Creo 2. It has a transparency effect that traditionally in blended mode would run on the CPU. So what the ISV team and what PTC did was get together and come up with a solution that runs the transparency mode right on the GPU rather than the CPU. And this is called order independent transparency. And so you can kind of see that in the playback there, where you have the transparency effect running on the CPU, has some artifacts. And so if you're a designer and you want to focus on design features on your model, you don't want to be distracted by artifacts and things like that, of course. And so what this does is not only does it help increase the accuracy tremendously from blended mode to the OIT transparency mode, but it also increases the speed by quite a bit as well. So by running the transparency effect on the GPU rather than the CPU, we're seeing a huge performance increase up to 10 times depending on the model. In this case, we're running a pretty large assembly. This is a combine assembly, and you can see the difference in performance between the blended mode and the OIT mode.
And I really like this as a direct comparison because it's kind of showing you, well, more directly the actual benefit you get from the cards. So not only do you have more accurate graphical representations of whatever project you might be working on, but it's also rendering it much quickly and much more smoothly, so you can move from point to point in your workflow without having to wait for a render to take place.
That's a great point. So, as a workstation user, you don't want to be hindered by the performance of your model because, designing a model is all about interrogating the model. And you don't want the model to slow you down to the performance of the model. So you want to be able to interrogate that model as quickly as possible. Mm-hmm. And this is definitely one feature that allows you to do that.
All right.
FirePro Professional Graphics comes with Eyefinity multi-display technology. This is a great technology to help increase your workflow productivity. So by spreading out your workflow across multiple displays, by taking advantage of more screen real estate, there's a lot of cases, depending on the application you're running, you can stay more updated with real-time information. You can interact more with those types of applications simultaneously. And as a result, you can work more continuously and more efficiently. As I mentioned, all of the FirePro cards run up to 6 displays per card. The display configuration is very easy to set up via the Catalyst Control Center. And overall, this offers a lower total cost of ownership because we can run 6 displays on one card rather than having to purchase and acquire a second card just to run, for example, a third display.
And if you guys are interested, John, when he's come by in the past, did bring us a really cool 6-display setup. So go to the Newegg TV YouTube channel, search for FirePro, and you can find that video if you want an actual demo of using 6 displays all at once from a single card.
So FirePro Professional Graphics offers Eyefinity multiple display technologies. We can run up to 6 displays off of one graphics card, and the way we do that is 2 ways. We can daisy chain displays, or we can use a multi-stream transport hub in order to connect up to 6 displays, which are current gen DisplayPort 1.1 displays.
And I think that's going to wrap it up for this video, guys. So I wanted to say thank you all for watching, of course. Thank you, John, for once again stopping by and sharing all this information with us.
Thank you, Paul.
And if you guys want to see more videos, specifically for FirePro videos, go to our Newegg TV YouTube channel, search for FirePro. You can see quite a few videos we've done there. Of course, all these products available on Newegg.com. Don't forget to subscribe for more tech videos, and we'll see you all next time on Newegg TV.